Did you know your mailbox could spark a neighborhood revolution? Well, it did. How far would you go to stand up against your HOA? Before we dive into this glittery tale of rebellion, leave a comment below telling us where you're from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. I just moved into my first home, the kind I'd dreamed of for years. But when I pulled into my driveway, an odd emptiness hit me. My mailbox was gone. I laughed it off at first, wondering if my new neighbors were playing a prank because it seemed too ridiculous to believe. However, as I started chatting with some residents, they all seemed to give me these guilty, knowing looks. What was going on? It didn't take long to learn that the Homeowners Association had removed it for not conforming to their strict guidelines. I was furious. I feverishly marched over to the HOA office, ready to confront them. As I entered the sterile conference room, I was met with stern faces and folded arms. Your mailbox was deemed a violation of community standards, the president declared coolly. I opened my mouth to respond, but hesitated. They seemed so rigid, so self-righteous about their rules. You can't just take something that belongs to me, I finally said, trying to keep my composure. But they stood firm, and my frustration boiled over. I vowed that this wasn't the end. Back at home, armed with my laptop, I dove into the HOA's rulebook. As I read, a sense of camaraderie built inside me. Many of my new neighbors hated the absurd regulations too. This collective annoyance ignited a fire in me. I envisioned a group standing up against this absurdity, our pent-up frustrations forming a united front. I couldn't just let them dictate how I express myself. If making a statement through my mailbox was what it took, then so be it. This would be the start of something bigger. With my plan to combat the HOA taking shape, I set out to create a mailbox that would not only defy their regulations but would sparkle with rebellion. I envisioned something outrageous. Glitter everywhere. The thought made me chuckle, but then reality kicked in. Could I pull it off? I quickly sketched my ideas, my excitement growing. Battling my doubts, I headed off to the craft store. What would I need to make this glitter box a reality? I felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Today was turning into a turning point. I quickly gathered all the supplies I could find. Bright paint, sparkling glitter, and odd machine bits for the glitter shooting mechanism. On my way home, however, the weight of my shopping bags reminded me that I was doing something risky. What would the HOA think? But then again, who cared? Once home, I rushed into the garage and laid everything out. Ideas bounced in my head like the glitter that I'd soon be creating. As I started constructing my outrageous mailbox, I felt a thrill of defiance course through me. After a couple of hours of trial and error, I was finally ready to test the glitter mechanism. My heart raced with excitement as I loaded the contraptions into the mailbox. I held my breath and pulled the lever, but instead of a gentle spray of glitter, the thing sputtered and exploded. Glitter engulfed my garage and me, sparkles falling from my hair and clothes. I couldn't help but laugh. The failure was messy, but it was also hilarious. I grabbed my phone and called my best friend. "You're not going to believe what just happened," I chuckled. I had pictured elegance, but this was pure chaos. Rejuvenated by my glitter catastrophes, I spent the next few days restoring the mailbox's functionality. After several adjustments and repairs, I was ready for another test run. With my heart pounding and glitter ready to fly, I opened the mailbox door. Success! A dazzling burst of glitter erupted in a controlled spray, landing in a rainbow shower around the yard. It was glorious. The triumph filled me with joy, and now, I was ready to debut my glittering statement to the entire neighborhood. But would they love it or hate it? I swung open my front door that morning, confidence surging as I walked the glitter mailbox to my driveway. Just as I placed it carefully, I noticed my neighbors peeking through their curtains, curious gazes scrutinizing my creation. A mix of excitement and anxiety filled me. What if they laughed at me? Yet as I stood there, I heard a soft giggle from next door. Before I could think twice, I decided to host a little neighborhood gathering to showcase this masterpiece and join forces with curious neighbors eager for change. At the gathering, laughter echoed as my neighbors marveled at the mailbox. "This is hilarious," one of them said, pointing at the remnants of glitter that covered my shoes. I could sense the admiration growing, but just then, the HOA members arrived uninvited, their expressions stiff and disapproving. "This mailbox is a blatant disregard for HOA rules," the president said, his tone cold. My heart sank. Was this really happening? I breathed deeply, realizing this was my moment to fight back and make my voice heard as they attempted to crush the joy I had brought. I wouldn't back down. With the neighborhood buzzing from my glitter mailbox, I got to work on an online petition to demand changes to the HOA's draconian rules. I shared it on social media, and within days, signatures rolled in from neighbors who felt oppressed by the guidelines. "This is amazing," one neighbor said over coffee as they gleefully signed. But just as I felt a surge of hope, I noticed an ominous email from the HOA in my inbox, threatening fines if I didn't comply. My stomach dropped. Would they crush our little movement before it could grow? I knew I had to act fast. It was time to gather my fellow petitioners and discuss our next move. I organized a meeting at my place and invited everyone in the neighborhood. When the evening arrived, I faced a packed living room filled with worried but determined faces. "We can't keep letting them push us around," I declared, hoping to rally them. Feedback flowed, with some expressing doubt, but many others chimed in with shared frustrations. "Let's send them a message they can't ignore," someone suggested. The energy in the room was electric, and I felt a newfound sense of unity building among us. Feeling emboldened by the meeting, we decided to create a magnificent glitter-themed mailbox showcase. I could hardly contain my excitement. As we designed our mailboxes, I noticed how creatively each neighbor expressed their personalities. One decorated theirs with seashells, while another painted theirs like a classic movie scene. But as the glittery ideas flew around, I overheard whispers that some HOA members were planning to show up and issue warnings. My excitement shifted to concern. I wondered if our majestic display would be met with resistance and threats instead of celebration. Despite the looming dread, the day of the mailbox showcase arrived, and I could see the buzz of excitement in everyone's heart. My mailbox stood proudly, glittering under the sun, while neighbors gathered with excitement around their custom designs. Just as I started to breathe in the joy of the event, the familiar frowns of the HOA board appeared at the end of the street, marching our way with a sense of authority. My heart raced. "Remember, just keep smiling and enjoy this moment," I whispered to everyone. But as they approached, the tension in the air thickened dramatically. The HOA members were adamant about issuing fines for our creative displays. It felt like they were ready to rain on our glitter parade. As one board member stood on a soapbox, demanding compliance, I stepped forward confidently, my friends rallying behind me. "We're expressing our individuality," I called out, holding my ground. "You can't take our creativity away." For a moment, silence enveloped us. Then, a neighbor joined in, declaring, "This is our community too." The growing chorus of support felt like an unstoppable force. But was it enough to counter their demands? Still fired up from our passionate stance, I grabbed the mic from the disgruntled HOA member, ready to make a powerful point. I questioned their authority, asking how frowning upon creativity would lead us to a happier neighborhood. Whispers of agreement rippled through the crowd. I could see board members glancing nervously at one another. "Let's have a real community meeting, one for everyone, to voice our concerns. How can we improve our neighborhood together?" I proposed, hoping our voices would overwhelm their rigid stance and lead us toward a fruitful discussion. Their eyes stirred with uncertainty, and for a fleeting moment, I felt triumph course through me. But the HOA president quickly regained composure and rejected the idea, insisting that we abide by their rules. The tension snapped back as they reiterated threats. My heart sank, but I took a deep breath, recognizing that this battle was just beginning. If they aren't willing to hear us, we'll need to expose their unwillingness to adapt. I whispered to a few trusted neighbors. We needed a strategy that would make it clear our community wouldn't back down or be silenced. Later that week, I grabbed coffee with my best friend to clear my head. I shared my vision with them, and they nodded with enthusiasm. "Let's gather all our voices and stories from the community," they suggested. We could compile them as a means to show the HOA how it's affecting lives. Their idea inspired me. We could create a heartfelt video, highlighting our experiences living under such strict regulations. Knowing we needed to act fast, I recruited more neighbors, and our mission turned from small gatherings to larger video shoots with laughter, bright mailboxes, and heartfelt testimonies, creating a powerful montage. As we pieced the video together, emotions ran high. I captured the essence of what our community wanted, a neighborhood blossoming with creativity rather than suffocation. Every story told was raw and genuine, and I could feel the impact it would make when shared. But just as we finalized our cuts, I received an email from the HOA threatening legal action against anyone causing disruption in their authority. Anxiety clenched in my stomach. Were they really willing to stoop that low? I had to remind everyone to stay strong because our movement was stronger than their threats. Finally, the day came to unveil our community video. We coordinated to host a public viewing in the park, inviting everyone to join us. People showed up in droves, excited to showcase what we all believed in. I felt a powerful surge of courage when the lights dimmed and the projector lit up the screen. Our video began playing, displaying messages and testimonials while my heart thumped in my chest. As the credits rolled and applause erupted, I noticed several HOA members uncomfortably shifting in their seats at the back. This was our first big step toward reclaiming our neighborhood. Would they be swayed? To my surprise, after the viewing ended, one HOA board member approached me, their arms crossed tightly. "I didn't think you'd pull this off," they admitted, their tone begrudgingly respectful but still guarded. "But you're pushing boundaries here." I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. "It's time the neighborhood has a say. We want to create a community we love," I replied sincerely, hoping to reach an understanding. Although uncertain, a flicker of hope sparked in me. But would it lead to change, or would we still face resistance from those in power? After the video screening, I felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. What would the board's next move be? To my surprise, a few HOA members approached me after the event, looking intrigued rather than hostile. "You really caught our attention," one of them admitted cautiously. My heart raced. Could this be an opening? "Let's sit down and discuss terms that work for everyone," I suggested, hoping to find common ground. As we exchanged glances, I sensed skepticism among my supporters. If the HOA was willing to negotiate, we had to tread carefully. One misstep could unravel our efforts. As the meeting day approached, I felt a torrent of nerves. While I prepared our thoughts, my friend reminded me to remain composed and confident. "This is a chance to change everything, Alex. We just need to show them what we can be together," they encouraged. When the board walked in, the tension was palpable. I stood alongside a few community leaders, ready to make my case. I called for collaboration and compromise, but the board remained evasive. Questions spun in my head. Would our collective voices sway them, or would they disregard our needs yet again? Weeks passed, and rumors began to swirl. Some HOA members were advocating for more lenient rules, while others remained staunch defenders of the status quo. I held onto the hope that our community's voices would create real change. I received an invitation to speak at the next community meetup, a chance to address the residents about our progress and rally support. "Together, we stand stronger," I exclaimed to a captivated audience. But just as I thought victory was within our grasp, the HOA president raised their hand, disrupting the excitement with a challenge. The atmosphere shifted as the board president confronted my suggestions with rigid responses. "Change takes time, and our guidelines uphold property values," they argued, dismissing our requests. My stomach churned as I glanced at my neighbors. Concern flickered across their faces. "But true community thrives on creativity and individuality," I exclaimed, trying to spark passion in the room. I needed them to see that we were more than just complaints. We had a vision. Would the board listen, or had I just sealed our fate with their unwavering authority? Facing the board became increasingly challenging as they insisted on keeping the older guidelines intact. Fueled by my frustration, I organized another protest outside the HOA building, rallying neighbors and supporters to join the cause. We displayed our vibrant mailboxes and shared stories of how we longed for creative expression. My heart raced with purpose, yet doubt crept in. Would they take us seriously, or would they brush us aside once again? I knew that every chant and every spark of passion counted. We needed to be loud enough to be heard. On the day of the protest, I felt the energy surging through the crowd. Laughter, creativity, and the spirit of resistance filled the air as we gathered with bright signs and sparkling mailboxes. Just as we began to chant slogans, an HOA board member approached us, visibly taken aback by the turnout. "You're making a real statement here," they conceded, scanning the vibrant demonstration. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I stepped forward, ready to engage. "We're not asking for much. We simply want a little room to breathe and be ourselves," I pleaded, hoping to strike a chord. As our resolve grew stronger, the atmosphere around the protest intensified. More media started arriving, capturing what was happening. Our fight was no longer confined to the neighborhood. I felt a rush of adrenaline as cameras turned to us, capturing the smiles, the unity, and the glitter-filled joy we'd created. But while many neighbors celebrated our spirited protest, I caught sight of the HOA board members gathering in a huddle. Worry crept in. Would they retaliate against us? What would the repercussions be? My heart raced as uncertainty filled the air. The next day, as the protest video gained traction online, I began receiving mixed responses from the community. Some were supportive, while others worried that we'd gone too far, fearing the HOA's retaliation might lead to heavier penalties. I felt torn, knowing our intentions were noble but unsure if we'd overstepped our boundaries. I gathered a few of my closest supporters for a meeting to discuss our next steps. "We can't back down now," I asserted passionately, but when voices of concern emerged, I realized we needed a solid plan to safeguard ourselves moving forward. With renewed clarity, we decided to initiate a community petition to formalize our requests. The goal was to present a united front that could no longer be ignored. Armed with our glitter-filled energy, we mapped out a strategy: outreach, discussions, and commitment. The next few weeks would be crucial. As we gathered signatures, people began sharing heartfelt testimonials, showcasing the benefits of creativity in our lives. After each meeting, the weight of worry eased. Our collective spirit was rising stronger than ever. But then, just as our movement gained traction, I overheard a conversation about potential legal ramifications hanging over our heads. Anxiety washed over me once again. As we prepared for the petition submission, the HOA released an ultimatum, threatening residents with fines if they participated in our initiatives. The news sent shockwaves through our group. "This is intimidation," I exclaimed, rallying my supporters. "They're scared of us. Unless we acted boldly now, our progress could be at risk." Together, we strategized for an upcoming public meeting where we would confront the HOA directly. The stakes couldn't be higher. If we didn't show up strong, they might perceive our movement as weakness. Doubt crept in again, making me wonder if we were really prepared for the battle ahead. Finally, at the public meeting, our supporters filed in, determination etched on their faces. As I took the mic, my palms were sweaty, but I soldiered on. "We're not here to defy for the sake of defiance," I urged, trying to reach the hearts of those opposing us. People nodded in agreement, their excitement palpable as I reminded everyone of how we could create a vibrant community. My words drew applause, but just as a breakthrough seemed likely, the HOA president interrupted, dismissing our ideas. The room fell into an unsettling silence as I realized we had to go further if we wanted to break their defenses. As we made our case with passion, I sensed the tides slowly turning. The board members exchanged anxious glances, revealing cracks in their armor. But when the president stood up to rebut once more, another neighbor jumped in, sharing their own heart-wrenching story about feeling stifled. With every word, I could feel the weight of their experiences resonating across the room. The atmosphere hung heavy with anticipation. Were we close to tipping the scales of their authority? As the conversation unfolded, I knew we had lit a fire in our community that couldn't easily be extinguished. After hours of discussion and debate, the unexpected happened. A vote was called to reevaluate and modernize the HOA guidelines. I held my breath as hands rose in favor of change. This was the moment we had fought for. As more hands went up in support, my heart soared, but I registered a warning sign. The president's eyes glowered, determined not to lose their grip. "This isn't the end," they warned ominously. My heart pounded. While we had gained a victory today, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Still, our perseverance had ignited the flicker of change, and together, we would let it flourish. As we proved that a community united can challenge even the strongest authority, I can't help but wonder, what creative stand will you take to express your individuality? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, your voice matters, no matter how glittery the fight may be.